Alright, well I'm hooking up the plumbing here. I've got these fixtures set. I'm going to go ahead and go over this, especially on the kitchen sink. It might be helpful to other people how to accomplish something like this. But anyway, if you set a fixture, I guess some folks might use silicone to seal this down. I do not. I use plumber's putty. So it has a bead that is put all the way around it. And then when you tighten it up, it'll squish it out and you just clean it off and reuse what was left. And that's plumber's putty. So I've already got the fixtures installed here, and of course right after I did this my wife said, what about the backsplash? So I may have to pull them later if I can't work around it, but no big deal. I need some water in the house. And if you're working on putting in new fixtures under sinks and whatnot, you really should get yourself a basin wrench. It makes these things easy to put together. It's basically a spring-loaded pipe wrench here. And I'll show you real quick how they do work. Okay, here's a shot underneath the sink. You can see the nut right here that holds the fixture, and this of course is the supply line. You can take your basin wrench and fish it up in here like so, and now for example I could loosen this and remove that supply line. If I wanted to tighten it up, you flip the head the other direction, and then you can hook it on there and tighten it up as well. They sell different models of these. This is a rigid and it's telescopic, so it gets longer and shorter, so it's real handy. But that would be the best tool to use for a job like this, because it's really difficult to get up in here with pliers in these tight spaces. And then of course the supply lines get hooked up to the stops. Alright, well I'm going to go over the plumbing and relationships to the drain with a new disposal. If you're installing a disposal, this tube right here has a plug down in it. If you have a dishwasher, you can hook your hose up here, but you need to make sure you drive that plug out, knock it out with a screwdriver and a hammer, and then fish out the plug itself. This of course is where the drain is. You have to put on this L right here, and then here's an 1.5 inch trap adapter. It's going to feed down into a 90. It will come across into a sanitary T. This is the other sink with a tailpiece, another trap adapter, and then it will run down into the P-trap and then exit off into the wall. Alright, well I'm going to go over how to install a garbage disposal. Typically, before I mount it up, I do the wiring, so you can flip it over and get everything hooked up. Then I'll put it up in place and lock it in. But I just wanted to kind of go over how one would be installed. This is the drain that comes with it, and we're obviously using oil rub bronze, so I had to buy a replacement. No big deal. But this will get a liberal bead of plumber's putty around it, and it will get squished down in the hole. The way these go together, looking from the underside of the sink, this will come down at you. Then you will install this paper washer, and then this flange ring right here goes on, and then this mechanism drops on, and then the spring clip goes right around into this groove right here, and it prevents that from coming back off. Once you get it that far, you simply tighten up all of these screws, pulling everything tight, and then you can take off the excess putty that had been squished out. After it's mounted, it's going to look like this from underneath the sink. Once you drop it on here, you get it in the right spot, and you can start hooking it just like that on this lock ring, and then grab it with pliers here and bring it all the way around until it goes click, and then it'll be in place. To drop it down, you just simply release that, and then you can drop the whole disposal off. That is how they go together. And this is what I mean by a liberal bead of plumber's putty. Roll it up in your hands, make a worm out of it, and start squishing it around there. And we'll just drop it right in where it goes, and I'll start pressing it down with my hands. And that's as far as I'm going to go with it. Now the clamping will take care of the rest of it. Alright, well this is what it's supposed to look like once it's installed. It helps if you have someone holding down on the top while you're holding all this up to get that ring on there. I do it by myself, but I just grab and I hold down like this and start pushing it around with my thumb, and then use my other hand. And when you tighten this up, you want these to be fairly uniform in length. So go around it in a pattern, and you want to end off with them about the same length. Alright, I've got it wired up and it's installed. Let's see, this will be a good time to check it, so let's see. Well, I'd say it's going to work. Alright, well, I'm going to install the basket strainer. It's pretty much the same as the other side in relationship especially to the plumber's putty. So liberal bead, stick it in the hole. Then we're going to come with the rubber gasket. Then we'll go with the paper gasket. Then we'll go with the large nut, tighten it up, clean it off. And then the tailpiece will go on. Nut on that. And then this T-washer gets put in the end here, and then that gets tightened up. No putty or anything on this. Well, I ran into a problem with my drains. These things do happen, but I'd mentioned that this is exactly how it was going to be set up, and then run over to this sanitary tee and then out through the P-trap. I randomly cut that piece of pipe to length a long time ago and just glued it in, and it happened to turn out to be the perfect length for everything to line up. But I have to whack it off now. Here's the problem. If I start coming across with this, I'm a good 4 inches low from here, so that's not going to work. I could buy a female adapter here, trap adapter, but I'm still a good couple inches low. So what I'm going to have to do here is omit this sanitary tee. I will have a length of pipe in here making up this side of the sink drain. I'll have a Y back there, and I'll put a second P-trap right here to make it all work out. And that will work out. I don't like the way it's going to look, but that's what I have to do to make it work. These are things that you run into from time to time, but the reason it's this way is the rough-in height of this pipe right here when the house was built back in the mid-80s should have been about 15 inches, I believe. It's 18 inches. So I'm losing 3 inches right there with what I have to work with now. So it's going to work, but it's costing me a little bit of time and a trip to the store. Oh well, I'll get it taken care of. I got the parts I needed and got this hooked up now. Hopefully you can see exactly what I was speaking of by using that Y back here and having to use a second P-trap. Worked out just fine. Everything is complete and hooked up. I do not have the water on yet. But if you're working on something like this and you shut your stops off, don't just turn them back on. Or if you turn the water off to the house, don't just turn them back on. Always take your aerators off first, because if there's any sediment that gets blown through here, it'll clog these up and you'll spend your time cleaning it up. So on something like this, I would open up the cold and then reach under and slowly start opening up the stop to blow anything out of it, and then turn it all the way up. Then I would do the same thing on the hot side. I don't have the hot water tank installed, so there's no point in turning this on. Nothing will come out of it. So this is the point where I'll go under there, inspect everything, make sure there's no leaks, and then I will fill both drains. I will plug both drains and fill the sink all the way up and let it sit for a while. And that will allow me to check the seals right here. And then I'll pull them, blow all that water out the drain, and then make sure nothing's leaking, which I'm sure it won't be. Well, I'm getting ready to set this sink here. Helpful tip: if you're going to drop in something new like this, go ahead and hook up all your supply lines, fixtures, drain, and everything. That way when you drop it in the hole, the only thing you have to do is hook up your water supplies to the stops and work out your drain. Much easier to do it that way when you can do it out here than laying on your back.